23rd Grand Slam Championship. Every point in that tournament had been a conflict, every match a battle. And that wristband has been there the entire time. Sweat from 5 marathons was carried by it. The pressure of championship points has been absorbed by it. When he collapsed to his knees in triumph, it was on his wrist. Alexa now had the trophy after he kissed it and solidified his status as the best of all time. Words travel quickly. A picture appeared. From a distance, someone had recorded the scene on their phone. Grainy but sufficiently clear. Djokovic giving Aya something. Her response and the expression on her face. It was all over the place in a matter of hours. Twitter went crazy. Instagram came alive. Tennis forums went into overdrive in an attempt to piece together what had transpired. Initially, it was conjecture. Did Djokovic just offer her guidance? Did he offer to work out with her? However, it was later confirmed by someone close to Alex. The wristband, the real Roland Garros wristband. There were 2 responses from the tennis community. It was celebrated on one side. This was a mentoring relationship. This was a champion who saw promise and gave support. Djokovic had always been outspoken about encouraging others and showing respect for the younger generation. He was out for a walk. Filipino supporters were ecstatic to see their girl, their trailblazer, recognized by the world's greatest. It was worldwide validation. However, it was questioned by the other side. Why her? Why not other up-and-coming stars? Was this a publicity gimmick? After years of being divisive, was Djokovic attempting to soften his image? It was deemed performative by some commentators. Others said it was undeserved favoritism. Alex Eala was holding a piece of history and attempting to comprehend its significance in the midst of it all. She didn't immediately post about it. She didn't use social media to gain influence. She kept it precious, intimate, and private. Because this wasn't about attention for her. It has to do with getting noticed. Someone at the top had looked at her and said, "You belong here," for the first time in her career. However, silence simply encourages conjecture. And the pressure increased as the days went by. Fans wanted to know. The media desired a narrative. And Alex was aware that she would eventually need to speak. What would she say? Was the query. Although everyone had an opinion, only Alex was aware of the reality. And something much more profound would be revealed when she did speak. Waves of reactions followed. First from spectators, then from players, and finally from the tennis industry as a whole. Everybody had something to say. Filipino fans spearheaded the movement on Twitter. For days, hashtags like Alex Eala and Proud Filipino were popular in celebration of the occasion. Messages flooded in. People recognizing our girl. Djokovic believes she has greatness. This was huge for a country that lacked elite tennis representation. It was no longer just about Alex. It was about potential and evidence that Filipino athletes could compete on an equal footing with the top players. However, not everyone was having fun. The gesture was questioned by some tennis purists. Why reveal something so intimate to someone who hasn't yet proven herself? Yes, she is gifted, but she has hardly made it into the top 200. There was no malice behind the critique. It had its roots in custom. Respect in tennis is earned via accomplishments, titles, and consistency. Even though Alex showed potential, she hadn't yet performed well on the greatest stages. Other players also offered their opinions. A few were encouraging. "This is what the sport needs," tweeted a fellow WTA player. "Legends are making investments in the future." "Novak has always been about more than just winning," said another. "He is this person." But behind closed doors, there were murmurs. Maybe frustration or jealousy. Other young players had made the same sacrifices and worked just as hard. Why didn't they have this kind of moment? Why was Djokovic unaware of them? On TV, sports commentators discussed it. One pundit questioned, "Is this mentorship or is this optics?" For years, Djokovic has faced criticism, his opposition to vaccinations, his tantrums on court, and his rivalry with Federer and Nadal. Is this an effort to rebrand in order to present a more sensitive side? He was protected by others. Novak doesn't require a publicity gimmick. The most decorated athlete in history is him. He would do much more than give a teenager a wristband in private if he wanted attention. The argument continued. However, one voice was absent throughout. Alex Eala. For almost a week, she said nothing. There were no interviews, no Instagram updates, just quiet. And people were much more intrigued by that quiet. What was she contemplating? What was her true emotional state? Was she feeling overburdened, appreciative, or under pressure? At last, her team revealed that she will be participating in an interview. One meeting, one opportunity to provide her version of events. The world of tennis held its breath. The truth behind Novak's gesture would be revealed and the detractors would be silenced when Alex finally spoke. She said this. There was only Alex, a journalist, and a camera during the private interview. Distractions and an audience are absent. She stared at the wristband as if it contained all the answers while sitting with it on the table in front of her. I didn't know how to react at first, she said in a calm yet gentle tone. I recently received an item that Novak Djokovic wore at a pivotal point in his career. How do you think about that? She paused, grinned, and went on. However, it had nothing to do with the bracelet itself. It has to do with what he said. He informed me that I made him think of himself. That I was struggling to be seen and to be respected. Hearing that from him meant the world to someone like me who has had to prove herself every day since she was 14. The question that everyone wanted answered is posed by the interviewer. Why do you think he chose you? Alex pondered for a while. She then revealed something that she had previously kept to herself. We discussed pressure, being the first, and bearing a nation's dreams on your shoulders before he delivered it to me. He explained to me that he understood since he wasn't Novak Djokovic or Nadal when he was younger. He wasn't the most popular. He had to fight his way to the top since he was the outsider. Gently, she picked up the wristband. He claimed that this wristband brought back memories of all the times he was questioned and told he didn't belong. And he saw that same fight in me, which is why he wanted me to have it. Her eyes sparkled with appreciation rather than sadness. Alex Eala was at a loss for words when Novak Djokovic performed something that no one anticipated. A small gesture, a private moment. However, the tennis community stopped to observe when it became public. Rankings and rivalries had nothing to do with this. This was about a connection that goes beyond the game, respect, and heritage. What gift did the emerging Filipina talent receive from the 24-time Grand Slam champion? And why was she utterly stunned by it? Stay with me because what transpired next will transform Alex Eala's life and serve as a reminder that tennis is more than just a sport. You should be familiar with Alex Eala. Since she was 15 years old, she has carried the hopes of a whole country on her shoulders. She was born in Manila, raised across continents, and shaped in the Rafa Nadal Academy, the first Grand Slam champion from the Philippines. Yes, but it was still a Grand Slam at the junior level. The 2026 U.S. Open Women's Singles Champion. A pioneer in a nation where boxing and basketball continue to compete with tennis for popularity. The problem with being a pioneer, though, is this. You stroll by yourself. While European athletes grow up on clay courts in their backyards and American teenagers have enemies everywhere, Alex had to leave home at the age of 14 in order to properly practice. Most of us cannot fathom the sacrifices her parents made. Her father quit his job. From thousands of miles away, her mother oversaw everything. And before she even knew what it was like to be alone, Alex learnt to be strong. By 2024, she had ascended, made it into the WTA Top 200, won her first professional title, persevered through qualifiers, and demonstrated her worth on the ITF circuit. Each game made a message. The Philippines benefited from every victory, but the pressure was oppressive since you bear the burden of everyone who follows you. Next is 24-year-old Novak Djokovic, Grand Slam champion and possibly the best tennis player in history. A man who has rewritten what is possible in this sport, shattered expectations, and broken records. But Novak has always been something more than the awards and rankings. An enthusiast for passing the torch, a student of the game, and a guardian of its customs. He has previously coached younger athletes. He has discussed accountability and the obligations that champions have to the following generation. However, no one anticipated what he did for Alex Eala. They had previously briefly crossed paths. Nothing noteworthy or headline-grabbing, a brief conversation during a tournament, perhaps a picture at a practice facility. Djokovic was pursuing history in his own universe. In hers, Eala was trying to survive. Light years separate two distinct galaxies. Or so everyone believed. However, tennis has the ability to unite individuals in unexpected ways. And sometimes all it takes is a single act of kindness to remind us of why we initially fell in love with a sport, a single gesture to change a narrative, or a single discussion to transform a career. However, what came next? No one could have guessed. A straightforward interaction that would leave Alex dumbfounded and the tennis community in a frenzy. Continue to observe. At the Monte Carlo Masters, it was early in the morning. The kind of silence that only lasts until the spectators show up, the cameras begin to roll, and the mayhem of professional tennis begins. For practice, Alex Eala was present. She was using the facilities during off-peak hours, honing her serve, improving her footwork, and doing what she'd done 1,000 times before after earning a wild card into a neighboring minor WTA event. Then, by himself, Novak Djokovic entered. There was simply a man in his racket searching for an empty court, no cameras, no fuss, no entourage. He saw her right away, not because she was well known but more because of the way she moved, her hunger, her concentration, and the unmistakable intensity. After observing for a while, he moved closer. "You're Alex Eala, right?" His tone was soothing and cordial. Just sincere curiosity, no distance, no ego. She froze. She would later acknowledge that it was unbelievable. Novak Djokovic was aware of her name. Standing 3 feet away, Novak Djokovic asked if she wanted to hit some balls. For 20 minutes, they rallied. Just two people having fun with the game, nothing official. However, people who witnessed it described it as bizarre. A teenage girl from the Philippines was given balls by the best player of all time, who also gave her guidance on court positioning and corrected her grip. Not as a celebrity performing charitable work, not as a coach, but as someone who recognized the hardship. Novak did not simply go after they were done, he got down with her and inquired about her experience, the Nadal Academy, and what it's like to represent a nation where tennis is still developing. And Alex revealed himself. She told him about the hardships, loneliness, and sacrifices of being the first. Novak paid attention. Truly paid attention. Then he said something that she would never forget. "You make me think of how I used to fight for respect and attention when I was younger. Don't allow anyone to give you the impression that you don't belong here." However, he didn't end there. He took something out of his bag. A band. Not just any bracelet, either. He had worn one when he won the French Open in 2023. Faded due to wear and perspiration. A fragment of the past. A fragment of him. "This brought me luck," he stated as he gave it to her. "Maybe it'll do the same for you." Unable to talk, Alex stood there clutching it. This was more than a present, which caused her hands to shake and her eyes to tear up. This served as confirmation. This was a mythology telling her that she was important. She was able to say 2 words. "I'm grateful." However, even those felt insufficient. The tennis world stopped and stared at the purpose behind the present, even though the gift itself was shocking. What was the true meaning of that wristband? There was more to the bracelet than just fabric and elastic. It was a cloth-wrapped legacy. Wearing it during the 2023 French Open, one of the most taxing competitions of his career, Novak Djokovic broke Rafael Nadal's record.